So pleased today to introduce our speaker, Dr. Becky Masterman, who will talk on helping people help bees. Becky is the Associate Program Director of the University of Minnesota Bee Squad. I think it's a great job title myself. Becky graduated from the University Twin Cities campus with a BA and then obtained a PhD degree in entomology at the university, studying bee behavior and neurobiology. We are looking forward to learning about how the Bee Squad helps people help bees, and also what kind of bee-friendly practices we can adopt to do our own part. I think we're lucky to have this nationally recognized and groundbreaking work being done in our backyard at the university. The Bee Squad was founded by Dr. Marla Spivak of the University Bee Lab to help address these challenges that the bees are facing. Some of you may have seen an extensive article in the local newspaper this last fall about her work, and she also has a TED Talk. We are pleased to have Dr. Masterman here today, and please give her a warm welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here. It's always fun when I have a captive audience and I get to talk about bees for a half an hour. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey. There really is a bee squad, and it really is my job to be in charge of it. So we're out there helping people help bees, but I don't know if you all can recognize what we see on the left. Does anybody recognize that? Think August, think picnics, think pop cans. So my job is to help people help bees, and we are doing that. But part of what we need to do is education. So believe it or not, these insects on the left, that's a wasp. They come in many different shapes and sizes, but they're also beneficial too. But they're not beneficial in August, because in August they give the bees a really bad rap. So we try to do a little bit of education as far as what the wasps are doing in August. And you might feel better knowing that the reason why they're bothering you is because they have been feeding all summer long on your garden pests, and by the end of summer, in August, they don't have any more pests really to eat. So all of a sudden, you have this social colony of wasps, and they're carnivores. Our bees are vegetarian, feeding on pollen and nectar, but the wasps are feeding on other insects, and they really run out of food. So that's when they start to go for the carbohydrates. That's your pop. And anybody in the bee lab, we don't drink out of pop cans for that reason ever. So that's just another hint to you. But they go for the carbohydrates, and they also go for picnics. And they will actually, if you just slice them off a little piece of your hamburger, they'll just take that and fly away with it. It's kind of cool. But anyway, so now part of what we do is we try to help people. Come August, if you have any questions, remember the Bee Lab talk and go to our Bee Lab website, and we've got a flyer up there that can kind of help you, because these nests do not live perennially. And so if you have some wasps that are bothering you, all you have to do is wait for 2 hard frosts, and you know they'll be there sooner than later when we're in Minnesota, and those colonies will die. So why do we care about bees? About 1/3 of all the food we eat is benefited by bee pollination. Pretty much enough said. If you like a diverse diet, the bees are helping you both eat that diet and eat it at a price that we're used to paying. If we don't have any bees, we're not all going to die, but we're just going to not enjoy our meals as much. So that should make you feel a little bit better. When I talk about bees today, I'm talking about honeybees for the most part. The honeybees live in they naturally would live in a tree trunk or a cavity, and they live in boxes when we manage them, because we're able to them actually perform management. We're able to make sure that they're healthy. We're able to take out the combs. So on the left top, you can see that's what a colony will do in its natural state in a place like Bermuda. So in Bermuda, they have colonies that are open, and they are just protected by some leaves of trees, and you can actually see what a colony looks like. But colonies are actually adapted to live in northern climates, and so they will nest in cavities, and everything you see in that top left picture will actually be in either the boxes or in tree cavities. So when we're talking about, I mentioned we're talking about honeybees, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. I should mention that in Minnesota we have 350 to 400 other kinds of bees. So the honeybees are easiest to talk about because honeybees have beekeepers who are managing them, and honeybees make honey. But we also we have 18 species of bumblebees. You might be familiar with the big furry bumblebee. And we have these really pretty green sweat bees. We have all sorts of big and small bees. And they're nesting mostly in stems or actually nesting in the ground. And they're solitary. So the honeybees give us a chance to talk about bees because it's an insect that we're all very, very familiar with. But I like to say that these honeybees are really the spokesbees for all the other Minnesota bees out there. We have 20,000 bees internationally, and about 2,000, 3,000 bees in the United States, and then 350 to 400 in Minnesota. So, but our honeybees have this exciting division of labor, overlapping generations. There's one queen in a honeybee colony. She could lay up to 1,500 eggs a day. And the drones, we will only have several hundred at the most in a colony of about 40 to 50,000. And they're just solely responsible for reproduction. At the end of the season, you know that winter's coming because the girls kick the boys out of the colony. They don't even feed themselves in the colony, so they get fed by the workers. All the workers are all female, and the workers actually have 2 sets of chromosomes versus the 1 set for the males. So if you like a good story about powerful women, go to a bee colony because that's what we're looking at. The girls actually are the only bees that sting. They're modified ovipositors. When I say modified, it means there's a venom sac. In the case of a honeybee, this venom sac has muscles associated with it and a barbed sting. So honeybees, you might have heard, they lose their sting when they actually will go to sting you. They lose their sting, it comes out, and they will die shortly afterwards. That's where they're really hesitant to sting. It's not a good strategy. The workers are pretty amazing. I wasn't trying to be funny. The workers are pretty amazing because the colony is really the organism itself, and the workers will do what the colony needs. So if the colony needs food, even though a worker is a little bit younger and maybe she's not at the age where she would normally go out and forage, she's able to tell that the colony needs food, and so the workers will go and forage earlier. If the colony needs more bees to take care of the young, then those bees will go ahead and allocate themselves to that task. So for any of you who are running a company, this is a really good model. So they're quite efficient in what they do. A little bit about what beekeeping looks like in the United States. In the US, the majority of the beekeepers are commercial beekeepers. We have about 2.6 million colonies in the US, and 2 million of those are managed by commercial beekeepers. They will load the bees on trucks in order to drive across the United States and meet all of our pollination needs. So really the success of pollination is in the hands of a few. The beekeepers who are commercial are owning 15, 20, 30,000 colonies, and they are moving bees across the US. Actually next month they're already there now, but the almonds will bloom in California, and in California, that almond crop needs 1.7 of those 2 million colonies of bees in order to meet the pollination for that crop. So it's a difficult system. It's also an opportunity because if you're familiar with agriculture, if you can get all of the animals in one place and treat them for any diseases that are impacting them, it's an opportunity to make a really big impact on a pest or a disease population. So we're trying to look at it that way, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next couple of slides. But it's important to know what Minnesota is for commercial beekeepers. It's the place where the bees go to get healthy. So Minnesota, the Dakotas, Minnesota is usually number 5 in honey production, and a surplus colony is going to make surplus honey. And so Minnesota has historically been a great place for bees to go to get healthy. That's why we have such an important bee lab in our state, because of the fact that we have a we not only have hobby beekeepers in our state, but we have a large number of commercial beekeepers who have really close ties to our bee lab. I mentioned, this is the sad part of the talk, the next couple of slides. So since 1945, the actual total number of colonies has gone down about 3 million. So, and that's really because of our agricultural practices. Bees are not native to the United States. They came over in the 1600s, and they are big fans of clover. And clover and other forage used to be used for cover crops. And with the pesticide business, more and more chemicals are able to be used to help nourish the soil instead of the old ways. And so our land really just supports fewer bee colonies than we used to be able to in the 1940s. But since 2006, you're probably familiar with a term called colony collapse disorder. I don't use it very often. Actually, if you study bees, we don't use it very often. But this is what we're talking about. Approximately 30% of the bees die every winter. And this graph shows in red the percent of colonies that have died over the winter. That's it's a sample from all of the colonies that are managed, the 2.6 million. In blue, that's the number that the beekeepers expect to lose. So beekeeping for a number of people is a business, and there's an expected loss. So as you can see, that the amount of loss that we have over the years is much higher than what we actually expect. And this has been going on for a very long time, and it's actually not sustainable. The beekeepers have to spend more and more money every year in order to divide their colonies to bring them back up to that 2.6 million number. So what's going on? It's not just one thing. If it was one thing, we would all be really excited, because then you just take care of that one thing. But it's not. The honeybees have a very serious mite pest that was introduced to the United States in 1987. And this mite pest, it transmits a lot of diseases, probably some that we don't even know about yet, and we haven't figured out. On top of that, with the lack of good nutrition, the bees aren't able to, one, have a healthy immune system. Bees have immune systems, which is pretty fun. A lot of work has been done to really look at, and it's being done in the bee lab, at what a healthy bee immune system looks like and what a good marker for that is. And nutrition really aids in both the immune system and then also in detoxifying the pesticides. So bees have always, for the most part, brought some pesticides back to their colony. But since 2006, when everybody was worried about all of the loss of colonies over the winter, a lot of studies have been done to look at just what they're bringing back. Does anybody here eat pollen on a regular basis? Okay, you're not going to want to start when I tell you this. A bee can bring back a little pellet of pollen. That little pellet can have 6 or 7 to 8 different pesticides in it. And when I say pesticides, I mean herbicides, I mean insecticides, I mean fungicides. Fungicides have turned out to be potentially a big culprit in what's going on, because the bees will actually use a fungus in order to make their pollen more digestible. And so if they're bringing fungicides into the colony, then it's really impacting their nutrition. They might not be able to access that nutrition. Okay, everybody ready to get happy? So, there's my boss. So my boss, Dr. Marla Spivak, I just looked, I sent it to somebody else, but her TED Talk has now been looked at almost 1.8 million times. So she's internationally recognized. She's a great boss, and she's been an amazing advocate for the bees. I like to say that her lab alone, she's really trying to solve this whole problem, because Marla she's got 6 PhD students, and she's looking at both pesticides, or not both, including pesticides. She's looking at how to help the native bees. She's got graduate students who are looking at the diversity of agriculture and other food sources around colonies and what's a good predictor for how to have a healthy colony. Looking at really all the different angles as far as how to keep bees healthy. In addition to that, she started the Bee Squad, and the Bee Squad was started because, one, the university trains an awful lot of beekeepers in the classroom without a lot of hands-on training, and so we're out there to help beekeepers, but there's this huge contingent of the public who really wants to help. The public has brought this movement to the point where there's an awful lot of action that's been taken place. Minnesota is a leader in pollinator protection. The last legislative session, we had several different bills that were really put forth and passed to protect pollinators, including they're building a new bee lab for us. They're funding 2/3 of our bee lab, which is really exciting because right now we work kind of in a garage. But we get a lot done in that garage. But the Bee Squad it's funded partially by Dr. Spivak's MacArthur Genius Grant Fellowship. That's how she started it. We're weaning ourselves off of those funds. The Wells Fargo provided us with a very generous grant, again, to help with some of these startup costs because we're a new business actually within the university. Also, the University of Minnesota Extension has funded us partially, and we also depend upon a lot on customer revenue, customer-generated revenue. So what do you have to do to become a Bee Squad team member? Wearing a beard of bees helps. So I've been able to hire and recruit some really exciting bee squatters, as we're calling them. I've got somebody whose only experience before working for me was to work with Africanized bees in Nicaragua. I've got a recently graduated MFA with creative nonfiction as her focus from the university, who's my grant writer, and she's also a great beekeeper. I've got somebody who does theater. She's got a degree in theater and stage management, so she's in charge of the equipment. And on top of all of that, they've got great skills in keeping bees. And in the middle, bottom, you can see our wild bee squad team, and they're in charge of leading wild bee safaris, which you all want to go on one now, don't you? So we do beekeeper education. We either go to people's houses, or the most effective way to do it, and cost-effective and labor-effective way to do that, is to bring them to our campus. And so we bring them to our apiary, let them practice on our bees, and then go practice on theirs. And we also do an awful lot of engagement with the public. Last year I gave 45 talks. I still like getting you all in one room where I can get you to pay attention to me. But I really enjoy being able to talk to people and at least share something as far as what you can do to help the bees. We also do a lot of presentations at other events. The most amazing part of the Bee Squad program is called Hive to Bottle. And that is our kind of surprise, because when I read it on paper, I said it would never work. It's actually where people buy their own bees and equipment. They're not beekeepers. And then they pay us to go and take care of their bees for them. It's really fairly expensive, and it turns out, not that we're making money on it, we're really covering our costs. Transportation and labor are high costs for us, but it's a way for either families or for businesses or organizations to engage in the pollination or pollinator issue, as well as engage their public and their audiences. So Aveda is one of our customers. This customer on the left, this is Jenny of the Bee Squad taking care of her bees. Those bees are on the second-story rooftop of her home in Minneapolis, and she's never actually been to that rooftop to see her own bees. So that owner of the bees has only seen the bees when I send her pictures. But the very first year, the bees need about 100 pounds of honey for the winter. The very first year, those bees made extra 60 pounds of honey for her. So it says a lot about, can bees be healthy in the city of Minneapolis? The answer is yes. I think they made about 90 pounds this summer. So she's now had an awful lot of honey from these bees that she's never seen. Like I said, Aveda, we have bees on rooftops of museums, the Minneapolis Institute of Art, as well as Wiseman Art Museum. We do an awful lot of work with the bees on the rooftop, but then we also take that work into the museums and engage with the public, their audiences there. Minneapolis College of Art and Design has bees. And what we're doing is we're not just keeping bees for people, and one of the things that people like about this program is that they're participating. So we are collecting data from each of these colonies. The first big year, it was 47 colonies. Last year, it was about 100 colonies, and this 2015, we're managing about 150 colonies across the Twin Cities metro area. I just got back from a pretty big beekeeping convention, and you tell a scientist that your data set is basically colonies riddled across the metro area, and they get very excited because you can do lots of cool things with those data. So we're able to really identify trends because we know where these colonies should be in their growth, and we can tell if some areas are doing better than others, and we can also help identify other issues, as well as implement management strategies so that we can really help the backyard beekeeper, because we've got a lot of single, double, or 3 or 4 colonies in one location. And when we have that spread across the Twin Cities area and we're looking at different management strategies, we can come up with some really good answers for beekeepers as far as how to keep their bees healthy. So what can you do? So we don't need you to help with the mite problem. We're going to try to take care of that ourselves. But we do need you to help with a couple of problems. One is that there's just not enough food out there. And if you see my boss's TED Talk, she likes to say just one flower. Just start with one. If you have one flower, that's food for a bee, food for a butterfly. But looking at places where you can have food planted year-round is even better. So anything that is bee-friendly and blooms from spring to fall can really help a lot of bees and butterflies throughout the year. Also maintaining habitat with some bare ground and some brush. A lot of bees, I said, either nest in stems or just right into the ground in tunnels. And so if you use a landscaping fabric and then an awful lot of mulch, those bees can't get down into their normal nesting sites. So maybe find a place either on the grounds of your business or at your home, or both, even better, and just leave some of that area bare so it could be habitat for bees. Also avoid using pesticides. That includes all the different kinds of pesticides. Supporting agricultural practices that promote diversity. There's a lot of natural pest control that happens when we actually go from a monoculture to diversified crops. And also be creative and open to change. This is where I tell you that creeping Charlie is really, really good for bees. Don't worry, I don't expect you to engage. I know. So are dandelions. See, now dandelions aren't as bad. But when it comes to pesticides, we have to look to our neighbors to the north to really learn a lesson here. They've actually banned the use of cosmetic pesticides. I'm an entomologist, and I actually really appreciate that pesticides are there for us in varying capacities in order to help us with our food supply and help with human health issues. But Canada's banned cosmetic pests, which is really kind of a unique idea. Because not a lot of us have thought about that in the United States. But basically, if you don't have a use for a pesticide, that is because you have to increase food or keep the food supply safe or prevent human disease, they don't allow the sale of it. But this told a story. This slide. This is the sad story. This is a colony in Minneapolis that was a brand new colony in 2013 and did so well that it did provide surplus honey. But one day the owner went back after she had extracted honey. She went to put that box back on the colony and found these dead and dying bees basically on the front porch of the colony. And we knew of 2 other colonies in that general area, actually a few more a little bit farther out, but it was those 2 colonies in addition to this one, within a mile, and all 3 of them had dead and dying bees out in front of them in the city of Minneapolis. This is over by the Walker Art Center. And the MDA, as well as the Bee Lab and the Bee Squad, we collected bees to test for pesticides. And the test came back positive for something called fipronil. Does anybody recognize fipronil? It's very safe for humans and mammals. So it's used against fleas on your dogs. So it's the active ingredient in a lot of flea control. But it's also used to spray perimeters of buildings for potentially box elder bugs, who have yet to kill a human, as far as I know. But we don't know what happened. We will never know. The MDA tried to find out where it was sprayed, but you can buy fipronil online right now. And it's pretty easily accessible, but it's highly, highly toxic to bees. And this was found not just in the dead and dying bees, but also in some of the pollen. So a scenario could have been that somebody sprayed the perimeter of their building for potentially box elder bugs, maybe wasps. And then it might have drifted onto the sedum, because that's what was in bloom right about then in September. So we're not going to know, but it just kind of tells a story, and it really it engaged this whole city of Minneapolis in order to really rethink what they were doing with some of their chemicals. And I've promised Catherine, the owner of this colony, that her bees didn't die in vain. And these bees actually were part of the reason that the legislature made some changes in a couple of the pesticide bills that were passed last year. So I've got a second. So a couple of the cool things that we're going to be doing with the Bee Squad. It's not just about now helping people help bees. We're also helping people, and we're also engaging a different audience. So we've been funded to start a program called Bee Veterans, where we're actually able to start to explore the therapeutic benefits of beekeeping for a group of basically veterans who are reintegrating. And we're also collaborating with the University of Maryland College Park, where we'll be starting a bee squad there this year too, and also bee arts. So we've applied for a little bit of funding where we're trying to explore the relationship between bees and artists, because they keep sending me emails and I don't know what to do with all of them. So we do have bees on the rooftops of the museums and Minneapolis College of Art and Design, but the number of artists that engage me, it's pretty impressive. So we've got to do something to look at that relationship. So if you need to get in touch with me, if you have a really good idea, I mentioned be creative on the other thing that you can do and be open to change. My email's on the top, bsquad@umn.edu. My name is Becky, and those are all of our social media channels if you're interested. So I think I have a minute or two for questions. Yes?
Could you explain the process of how a bee produces honey?
Sure. How does a bee produce honey? So a bee will make, I think it's like 1/13 of a teaspoon of honey in her entire lifetime. But a honeybee will go to forage on about 50 flowers on one foraging visit. She collects the nectar. The nectar has a high concentration of water. She brings it back to the colony. In her honey stomach, there are some enzymes that are added, and that nectar that she collects is then given to a bee when she comes into the entrance. It's given to a receiver bee, and then that bee will bring that nectar to a cell where the honey is being stored in the colony, and then they will dry that nectar out until it becomes less than 18.6% moisture. At that point, when the moisture is low enough, they cap it with wax that they produce on their bodies. They have wax glands, and it's sealed, and it's good for use at a later time, when they need to use it at a later time. And so different flowers produce different kinds of nectars, different flavors, and have different nutrients. The first summer we had bees at the Minneapolis Institute of Arts, we were able to extract separately 4 different colors of honey, which had 4 different distinct flavors. That's pretty cool. Yes?
Would any flower that you plant attract, or are there certain flowers that are better than others?
That's a really good question. The question is, would any flower attract bees? We're including those butterflies too. Or are there specific flowers? So there are flower lists all over the place. If you go to our website, we have a nice list called Plants for Minnesota Bees. That's a PDF that can be, it actually could be emailed or included in the newsletter if you'd like, Karen. And Plants for Minnesota Bees has a nice list of both native and non-native flowers that are good for honeybees and native bees. But there are a lot of flowers, not all of them, because some will attract hummingbirds, but a lot of flowers are friendly for bees. A lot of fruits, a lot of like oregano, thyme, really good for bees. Yes?
2 questions. First one, is there any restrictions, or do you need a permit to have a beehive or beehives especially in the metropolitan area? The second question is, I've seen on one of the educational channels that there's a new beehive being developed, a plastic one or something that's a lot better than the wooden boxes that you see.
see that look on my face for the plastic? Okay, so first question was ordinances. So we have a list on our Bee Lab website of city ordinances. Now every city is different. A lot of cities allow bees. In Bloomington, you need to have at least an acre, and you need to live on that site. And I don't know the other details of it, but it makes it pretty difficult if you live in Bloomington to have bees, or if you're a business. But Minneapolis, St. Paul, they both allow colonies. And other cities, Edina's working on it. They were supposed to talk about it, if not last week, this week. So it all varies. And then I haven't heard of it. There is some plastic used sometimes on the frames in the honeybee colony to give them a kind of a head start for building it. But if it's the outside, so a colony needs to breathe. So we tell people when you paint the boxes to make sure you use a latex paint so that the colony can breathe. So I'm not quite sure about that. Yes?
When we purchase perennials or things, is there a concern about how that has been treated?
So the question was, if you purchase perennials, is there a concern about how that's been treated? One of the bills last year that was passed actually says that if you are selling and advertising a bee-friendly plant, it can't have a systemic pesticide. It's a neonicotinoid that's been in the soil of it's a standard practice in nursery, so nurseries and growers are doing their best to change their practices now because it's illegal to sell that in Minnesota. And so that started with the public. So the public really caused that change by asking the question over and over again. And finally it kind of became something that everybody had to start addressing, and then it was addressed in the legislature. So you should be able to buy, if it says bee friendly, it shouldn't be treated. And if you ask the grower or the nursery where you're buying it, they should have an answer, unlike a couple years ago where they wouldn't have known.
One last question.
Yes. From what I've read, and people may be surprised to hear that not only do bees do well in urban areas potentially, but right now in Minnesota, bees in the metropolitan area are actually faring better than they are in rural areas. Either maybe confirm that and explain why that is.
Sure, that was Bee Squad data actually, and I will say, in 2013, our urban bees did a lot better. That was an NPR article. The bees did much better in the cities than they did in outskirts. This year it was a little bit different, and I think that a lot of that was because there are more beekeepers and there were more mites that were available for the colonies. So they were stressed a little bit. So I have a feeling the resources are very diverse and plentiful in the cities. Also, if we can have bee food all along the highways, think about when you're driving, think about the next time you're in rush hour and you've got the grass and the flowers on either side. Those flowers are bee food. So it could be a lot of food for bees in city areas, and that's why.
Can you stick around for a couple other questions afterwards? Thank you very much.
Yep.